All right, it's official. The big debate will be two people because Gary Johnson and Jill Stein are out of it. They did not make the cut. They did not reach 15% in polls to make the cut. So it's Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Game on. Welcome, everybody. This is Your World, and I'm Neil Cavuto. And I don't know what that necessarily means for the race itself, because we get two different numbers for these candidates when they're all up there together, when the four candidates are up there together. These is how the latest polls look. Still very, very tight with Hillary Clinton out front. Donald Trump 1 percentage point behind. Now, if it's a two-person race, it flips just the opposite, with Donald Trump out front ahead by 1 percentage point. Does that make a difference when you have two people on a stage versus 3 or 4 on a stage? Anyone's guess, but let's go to GOP pollster Kristen Soltis Anderson on that. Kristen, what do you think?
I think there are going to be a lot of younger voters in particular who are disappointed that the other candidates are not a part of the mix. If you look at the crosstabs in any of these polls, it's younger voters that are breaking really heavily for these third-party candidates because they're not thrilled with the two major party options. And so if those two folks, if Jill Stein, if Gary Johnson, if Evan McMullin, who also part of the mix, if they're not on that stage, then there's a chance that younger voters just tune out of the process, stay home altogether, which is going to be potentially fatal to Democrats' chances to take the White House. You know,
it does sort of defy the push on the part of a lot of Hillary Clinton folks to really pile on Gary Johnson when he had the flub over on MSNBC, when in fact, if he is out and people are disenchanted, they're not necessarily going to be inclined to jump to Hillary. They might just opt out altogether, right?
Right. And right now, if you look at polls about whose supporters are more enthusiastic about voting, right now Republicans do have a slight advantage. Now, an enthusiastic vote and an unenthusiastic vote still count the same on Election Day, but someone who turns out to vote versus someone who doesn't, one counts and one doesn't.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference. You know, if people are enthusiastic enough to turn out versus do people just not like their choices but still drag themselves to the polls and cast a vote anyways?
You know, I wonder, too, that I've always had Donald Trump decimated a Republican field because in the debates there were still a lot of people, fewer as the debates and time went on. But that did help him because there's not as much pressure on you as a single debater when you are on a large stage with a lot of people. Now this will be just he and Hillary. So how does that enter the dynamic and affect just him?
It'll depend on how aggressively the moderators push him to sort of go, more than an inch deep on a lot of his policy ideas.
So like today's the birther thing today, and that'll no doubt come up. But then he's got to deal with that because Hillary Clinton and a lot of her surrogates certainly were.
Certainly. I mean, these are the sorts of things, the controversies, things that are a part of his business record that have come under scrutiny. If at that point he still hasn't released his tax returns, I expect that'll be a question he gets asked. So there'll certainly be a lot of incoming fire, either from the moderators or from Hillary Clinton herself. I mean, these are going to be contentious, must-watch debates. But it's going to be interesting to see Donald Trump when he's up there and there are not, 10 other people sharing the stage with him, where he can sort of deflect. I mean, I think this will be a little bit tougher for him. On the other hand, he's excellent at the medium of television. And I'm actually surprised that the Clinton campaign hasn't tried to do more to sort of level expectations so that it's harder for Trump to come out with a win. Because right now I feel like expectations are kind of low for him.
I'm wondering now, since Matt Lauer got a lot of heat for asking and interrupting Hillary Clinton a lot of questions on emails, I thought that was fair. I thought he was fair with both of them. But nevertheless, there was a lot of pressure, and it made me think, boy, the mainstream media is going to be making your life hell if, in that case, that's the kind of response you get if you put heat on the First Lady. I guess there are many loyalists who will read it through the prism of their bias. But I'm wondering what kind of pressure is on a moderator and moderators going forward if it's a two-person stage.
Well, on the one hand, you can have a moderator that takes a very light touch, who just sort of throws a question out there and then hopes that the two candidates will hold one another accountable. On the other hand, back 4 years ago, you had Candy Crowley, who was moderating one of the debates and sort of fact-checked in real time. It took a little bit of heat. It took some heat for it. I actually think that the role that Chris Wallace played in the primary debates, where he would pose a question, a candidate would respond, and then he'd say, put up chart number 4, and they had sort of created charts to go along with the questions. I thought that was really effective, because that wasn't just editorializing on the part of the moderator, but it was holding candidates responsible for responding to actual verifiable facts that could be proven, and sort of keeps them from just resorting back to talking points. I'd love to see more of that in these debates.
It's a pressure cooker if you are correcting candidates on the fly, as Candy found out,
Yep.
especially if it's deemed not fair or right, whatever. Kristen, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.